Lawrence County Lowdown is presented by Self Regional Healthcare.
Stop, collaborate, and listen. The Lowdown is back with its third edition. Did you like what I did there, Dr. O'Shields?
Third.
We are here with Superintendent of Lawrence District 56 School and viral rapping sensation, Dr. David O'Shields. Dr. O'Shields, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing well today, and at the end, maybe there will be an opportunity for a slight back-to-school rap. Who knows?
There you go. So don't tune out. Make sure you stick around to the end. See, that's why we knew you would be a good guest. Knows how to do a teaser, knows how to keep the people listening. That's what we like to see. And we're glad that you've joined us here on the third edition of the Lawrence County Lowdown. Wherever you're watching or listening, we are glad that you are with us. Dr. O'Shields, if you'll permit me for just a second, I do have a little bit of housekeeping. I've gotten some feedback from folks who have taken issue with, apparently I'm putting too much emphasis on the T in Clinton. Apparently I've been going too hard on the T in the last couple of episodes. So I just wanted to acknowledge I've heard it. Number one, thank you. I'll work on it because we will be saying Clinton over and over today, I guess. So we don't want people tuning out on that. But let me make one direct statement to Red Devil Nation. Just to let you know, if it was me, I'd be worrying less about the T and more about the L that Logan Bragg and the boys are going to be leaving on August 28th. So get ready for that, Dr. O'Shields. The Raiders are coming.
And we invite our northern neighbors to Clinton. We know it'll be a good game. It's always such a good rivalry between the two largest cities in the county.
What a tactful and respectful answer. That's what we like to see. I've said to people for a while, I want the rivalry back. I want the tension. And I know a lot of that, some things need to happen in Lawrence, and hopefully we're moving in that direction. But hopefully we've got a good game coming. Well, let's get into it, Dr. O'Shields. As we were prepping for this interview, the thing that came to my mind really were questions of longevity. Because you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started as Superintendent of District 56 in 2011. Is that correct?
As the official superintendent, yes. I started in 2009 as interim, in October the 1st of 2009 as interim superintendent, and then took over officially March the 1st of 2011. As superintendent. And in that time, District 55 has had 5 superintendents. If you count Dr. Harris in his second stint as interim, 6 superintendents. What do you credit that longevity that you've been able to have to? Because you've gone through COVID, you've done a building project, a capital campaign for a new high school. Like, it's not like you have had an uneventful tenure. So what do you credit your success and that longevity to? Well, I think in large part, I'm a product from here. I went to school. We moved. My mom and dad worked in the mill, came down from Spartanburg, worked in the Bailey plant. And as a result, since 3rd grade, I've been a product of Clinton. I went to Carolina with no intention of being an educator. My full intention was to be a minister. I was a religious studies major, planned to be a Baptist preacher. So it was the fact that God laughs when we make plans, I guess. But the deal gets to the fact that I worked 2 years in Columbia. I worked in Richland 1 at a W.A. Perry Middle School, and then Mama called, so to speak. And then in 1984, I came back to Clinton and worked at Bell Street Middle School. And having the luxury of being in numerous roles over time, I think helped me acclimate to the ultimate be-all, end-all position that they consider the superintendent to be, when in fact, really, I am merely an infinitesimally small piece in a bigger cog that makes the district what it is.
A fun parallel there. Is it parallel or is it opposites? I'm not sure. I went to PC to be a high school teacher and ended up a Baptist preacher. So here we find ourselves. Everything, crossing in streams there, I guess. But you touched on some of that longevity you've had, you've spent basically your entire career in District 56, moving up the ranks. That's not something that happens as consistently as it once did. That experience of, my aunt Teresa, who was at Joanna Woodson for her entire career,
Yes.
and my parents, who were at Lawrence High for basically their entire careers. That's not. I'll be remiss if I don't mention that my Uncle Gary was in Clinton schools for most of the time. People are actually going to watch this one because you're on it, so I have to make sure I give everybody the shout outs. The family's finally interested in one, but the longevity that you've had within District 56, there have to have been opportunities to go other places over the course of your career. What kept you in Clinton?
I think, I sort of alluded to the fact of the ministry, and I look sort of at the role that I have as a minister and not an evangelist. The minister basically takes root and operates within the church community. The evangelist comes and presents and then moves on to other things. And I always considered myself in that respect, because starting out, coming to Clinton and working in Clinton, I taught 5 years at the middle school, had the privilege of starting the gifted program at the middle school. I will never consider myself a gifted teacher, but I will be a teacher of gifted, because I'm not going to dare do that. But then had the privilege of being an assistant principal at the high school for 8 years. And then I was principal at an elementary school for 2 years, and then principal at a middle school for 7, and then moved to the district office and worked in HR. And then the opportunity availed itself to be superintendent. And, you had talked earlier about Lawrence. Clinton went through a period from 1995 to about 2009 with a series of superintendent opportunities as well. And, I applied for them earlier, and I didn't get it. And I think one of the best things was, at the time, the board chair, Buddy Hunt, did me the best favor ever, and that was not allowing me to be superintendent until I had some experience at a district level and to do the things that has helped me now in the position and the role that I have here in 2027.
Well, that does give a little bit of hope for those of us living and working in District 55, that moments of turmoil and things like that do pass, and that opportunities do come. You've touched on already. We share a mindset in this, the power and the good things that come from people staying and investing in one place, from people spending their time in one community, being a part of that community. The build up to, I'm sure you have experienced teaching the children of students you taught, maybe even moving. By the time my parents retired, they had gotten their first set of grandchildren of students they started with. So there's so much good that comes with that, but there is, I think, the reality of where we are in 2026 with District 56 and with District 55 with excuse me, with Greenville County growing at the rate that it does, and Spartanburg being right there, not too far of a drive away. The Columbia districts are not necessarily a huge time commitment to drive from folks who are living in Clinton, and there are financial incentives, especially, to move towards some of those larger districts, some of those faster growing communities. So how is District 56 in particular working on retention and keeping people here for the long haul? What do you do in the face of those realities?
Well, I think one of the things that you try to do is build that sense of community. You want to build that sense of investment. And with teachers, they can still live in Simpsonville or Fountain Inn and drive in. And what we've tried to do is create a familial atmosphere to the extent that we can, because we are a smaller district. And what we do is we basically elevate the needs of the teachers. We have what is called an impact, that our HR department has a letter for each part of the word impact, and it is to focus on deliberately and intentionally developing the talent that we have. We do offer a master's program free of charge. The sell there is they get it free of charge. The buy for us is they make a time commitment of 3 years or more to that they stay in the district. And we hope that if they can stay in the district, they can find that special sauce that makes Clinton and Joanna and Cross Hill and Mountville, Kynerds, all of us, the communities, because we're a lot like Lawrence. Lawrence is a series of communities, different communities. You've got one larger community, but you've got other communities as well. And Clinton, in the same way, does something similar. So we try to do that. We try to have things that would be promotional, enjoyable. We try not to be incredibly didactic in terms of being over the top with things. We try to work with our teachers, listen to our teachers, small enough that teachers can come in and talk to me without fear of reprisal. Because the one thing is, you can talk with me and I'm not going to get angry, because chances are, as old as I am, I might forget.
Somehow I doubt that, but you touched on the different communities, and I'm interested in your experience. One thing that is true definitely about District 55 is, and in some cases the communities are a little bit bigger, have a little bit more recent tradition of local schooling than some of the Clinton school districts, and you correct me if I'm wrong with that, but there's a lot of passion and pride in Gray Court, in Hickory Tavern, in even the Sanders community, and the folks who remember Sanders High School and things like that in District 55. Do you deal with kind of the tensions from your different shareholders community-wise in a way that I think we do kind of see in Laurens, that there is always a little bit of is it distrust of the city? Is it kind of concern that those communities are not being appropriately thought of? Do you see that in 56?
I don't see that nearly as much, because I think you're right. I think there are several factors. One being that Clinton High has for years been the high school of choice, whereas Hickory Tavern at one time had a high school, Gray Court had a high school, Ford had a high school. So you had these different communities and loyalties. And for Clinton, that's not been the issue. I think for us, another acclamation point is our threshing ground, our come together time is in middle school. So at Clinton Middle, all 3 of the elementary schools come together. So you have 3 additional years of coming together and working together and gaining a mentality of Clinton, not Clinton in the sense to the exclusion of Joanna, because I'm telling you, there are some great people in those other communities, in Cross Hill, in Mountville, and they are essential in being part of the fabric of the tapestry that is District 56.
Yeah, but you do. I think there is really something there that I know has become kind of a conversation around District 55. Is y'all become Red Devils more quickly than folks become Raiders. Y'all start to pull people together, and there's a lot of positive that comes from that. Community wise, athletics wise, and again, I think that's something that's one of those tensions that District 56 is starting to try and deal with and work through, and one of those things we're looking at moving ahead. If I can switch gears to sort of a technical question for you, we have talked about, we've alluded to teacher pay and the difference in pay in different districts and in different communities, and my guess is that a lot of people really don't understand how the sausage gets made in terms of school district budgets. We think about, local property taxes, business taxes, state money, federal money. I know a lot of things go into it. So we're going to enter into the segment that's sweeping the county right now. Explain it to Andrew like he's 5. Still waiting on a sponsor, so get those requests in. It's still available for you. But Dr. O'Shields, like I'm 5, will you explain to me how all those different pieces come together to form a school district budget and how you figure out what you can pay teachers and things like that?
Right. If you were 5, I will try to the best I can do as they do in children's sermons, and that would be an object lesson. What we would look at is if we could make pies, if we could have 10 pies, 10 pies being 100%. And if you look at that, 70% or 7 of those pies, we'll say they're peach pies. I like peach pie. So we'll have 7 of those pies. That money comes to us from the state as part of the general operating budget. Beyond that, you have 3 pies, and we'll say those are cherry pies. And those 3 pies come to us from local property taxes. So 70% comes from the state, 30% comes from the local, and then you do have less than 1% coming from the federal. So you will see that you may say there's just a fringe of crust around the pie, and that would be the federal part. In looking at making the pie, you've got to make sure that you have enough pie that when you are done, that you can sell the pie, give the pie, have the pie for people to eat. And that would be 85% or 8.5 of those pies, all 7 of the peach pies and 1.5 of the cherry pies would be going to the operating expense of payroll. So for us, payroll is the largest driver. And for us, 75% of that payroll is in instruction and student services. And that's part of the mandated state teacher scale. So if you look at it, it's a marvelous balancing act. I guess we'd say it's a balancing act, that you basically get a projection based on enrollment and the number of staff needed based on the new funding formula, that then you would have the revenue generated from the state and from the locals, that by the end of it all, your pie, 85% being in, again, payroll, 15% in operations and other things, that you would have to do that by the end of the year, you balance out that all of your pies are sold and all of your pies are eaten.
Gotcha. So how does the property tax piece work in a county with multiple school districts? Where do you get those pies? Where does that revenue come from?
Right. That revenue comes from, and looking at it from the local property taxes. Lawrence has its property taxes. We have our property taxes. We have special arrangements with the chamber, or not the chamber, the county, as it relates to FELO monies. FELO monies are not as fluid. You can't depend on them quite as much because you don't know. Over time, FELO arrangements typically do decrease. So you have to always look and know. But the big part, the major part, comes from local property taxes. And that would be something like your house, your car, different things like that. And I'll get calls. I'll get calls from people who will say, I bought a new Ford 150 and the tax on that was, pretty serious. And you look at the fact of those things do affect and do count toward the school funding.
Right. I guess my question is, so we're seeing a ton of growth in Gray Court right now, for example. A lot of houses being built, Fountain Inn, Gray Court, that sort of thing. Does that impact District 56? Is there county money that goes to District 56 regardless of where in the county, or are you limited to Clinton and Joanna and
We're
Cross Hill
limited.
and those?
We're limited to what is in our area, whether businesses are in our area or houses are in our area. And you're right. There's a tremendous amount of growth that is in the upper part of the county. They are, and if you continue to expand this program, which I hope you will, maybe you get to speak with city manager, Joey Meadows, about the prospect of the houses that are being built in Clinton. Houses, rooftops provide tax income, tax revenue. And for that, there would be a delineation, Lawrence getting its amount based on its revenue, and then Clinton getting what's from its area.
So then what, and I think you have touched on this publicly before, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway, because every now and then talk comes up of consolidating the districts. And so as you look from the 56 position we're seeing a lot of growth at the north end of the county. That's where Greenville is moving. Maybe, Columbia's Columbia's growth is a little bit farther away, so the things that come into y'all's end of the county are maybe not coming as quickly, not as obvious. As you look at potential, gains in revenue and things like that, what are the incentives versus the disadvantages of if we did bring 56 and 55 together?
And I think that's a good hypothetical question. My vantage point has been, as had Dr. Strickland's when he was superintendent, was to maintain the integrity of the two districts. I think as each plays its role, conversation will continue. There's no doubt. That conversation to me personally will be more of a moot point because I won't likely be there because of the nature of the time that it takes to go through a consolidation process. But I would say that we both work better independently because the nature of who 55 is and the nature of who 56 is best exemplified by allowing them to be who they are and not to force into being something that neither of them would want or that they're not.
That was a very nice way of saying Clinton doesn't want to deal with us. You
No.
navigated that. You navigated that beautifully.
No, it's not that we love to work with Lawrence. We do. We have a great respect for and appreciation for Lawrence. It's just that in Clinton and in the communities here, there is a far stronger sense of the 56 identity than being a consolidated identity. And I think in some respects, you look at that Lawrence made the effort back in the 70s to become a consolidated high school. And, you still get some of the heartburn with that periodically, as you alluded to earlier. And I think as long as if something is done and it is done where community members have buy-in, have voice, have opportunities to speak, who knows what the future will hold. I just know from my vantage point, looking from the limb that I'm on the tree, from holding on, the branch that I'm on, I think it would be better for us to consider two avenues.
People forget how big the county is. People forget geographically how much space you're talking when you try to bring everyone together. And so I was just seeing if I could get you to poke at us a little bit. But like I said,
No,
I
have
managed that well.
I have nothing but appreciation for Lawrence.
Let me ask you one more teacher pay question. I don't know that we've seen it as much in 56 and 55, but with the way the state kind of scales teacher pay, I know there are communities where you kind of see veteran teachers feeling like they're being pushed out, feeling like there is incentive to bring in younger teachers who are lower on that pay scale. Do you see that in 56? Is there that kind of pressure, or how do you handle, the balance of we want people who have been here forever, but people who have been here forever also cost us more?
People who have been here forever do cost more, but the reality is if we were to lose our retired folk, we would lose roughly 20 some odd % of our staff. And that's not a sustainable number to replace. So for us, if you got something that's good, keep it. And the value of those teachers who have experience in 56, we greatly appreciate it. And I think in an extent, the state has monitored the teacher pay with these percentages of versus straight out amounts. And let's say when you give a $2,000 raise, as we did this year, or will do for this coming year, that's going to have more of an impact at the lower end of the salary scale than it will at the upper end. So you're not doing it by percents as we once did. We used to do it by a percent. And now when they give a $2,000 raise, it's going to be somewhat less felt on the upper end. It doesn't mean that we are trying to devalue them. It's just what the state is allowing us, affording us, giving us. And then this year, unfortunately, with the state in the financial condition that it was in, couldn't and didn't fully fund the $2,000 to every single sale. So that was picked up by the local money. So we had to pick that up because it was running in the red there.
Another kind of gear switch here. One of the things that you've managed to do in 56 is get the new high school built, and kind of guide through that process. District 55 had a failed referendum a couple of years ago towards a new high school, and that conversation comes up pretty frequently. People are beginning to see, the age of the existing buildings and recognize that something has to be done. If Dr. Harris or the new superintendent of 55, when they come in, came to you for advice on shepherding that process, what did you learn from the building project that you would pass on? What would you kind of offer them as tips to make that successful?
When our referendum passed on August the 2nd, 2005, when that passed, it was for $48 million. Originally, it was to have been $45 million. We added $3 million. With that amount of money, you think you have an incredible amount of money to do any and everything you possibly want. At the time, what we had said that we were going to do was make renovations to Clinton Elementary and that we would build a high school. And you would think with a money like that, you could do things. Other things came up as can we do certain things like, can we have the athletic fields? Can we have a new football stadium? Can we have? So it became a matter of when the referendum was passed, it was a matter of all these people thinking that maybe they too could have something. And much of my career has been in the fact that once things were done and it was achieved, and we had a beautiful high school, many things didn't happen. We didn't have the sports teams that were there. They still played at the middle school. We still play football at Wilder Stadium, but we made a conscious, concerted effort over my 17 years as superintendent to regain public trust, because in some cases, if you don't have it as laid out, and that's one of the things that I would definitely recommend to Rhett, is to make sure you delineate specifically the things that you can do and give yourself a cost override, because things will typically, there's scope creep and things will typically go a little beyond. So make sure you say what you say and do what you do, because much of my career has been building things that for us were seen as, I thought that was going to be part of the referendum. And it didn't make it. And over the course of time with Dr. Pitts and Mr. Lawson, we have worked deliberately to make things better and to include things and to focus on facilities. Because I'm going to tell you something. If you're not careful, facilities can get away from you. And that is one of the things that we have had to be deliberate in our maintenance, in our continued use of 8% money to do the things that we can to improve the buildings that we have. I mean, this very summer, we are doing construction at Clinton Elementary to repave a parking lot, and at Joanna to repave the parking lot. Now, there's nothing at all sexy about a parking lot, but it's necessary. And those are things that you have to look at. And roofs, metal roofs will leak given time. So you have to constantly be in a state of maintenance and looking at a 4 or 5 year plan. And that's what we do. And we just have to live with and abide by a plan. So I would say to Rhett, be as specific as possible. The globalness of it can be seen as an attractor, but it can also be a detractor by the time you're done and things aren't done.
Gotcha. Well, we are pushing up on our time, and you've already teased maybe a little treat for us coming towards the end. So if you're ready, we're going to move into our other fastest growing segment, the Lowdown Lightning Round. Are you ready, Dr. O'Shields?
I will do what I can, but remember, I'm
Here
slow.
we go.
Dinosaurs can't think but so fast.
Ha ha. We'll see what we can get. Go-to lunch spot, Wilson's Curb Market or Whiteford's?
Wilson's.
There you go. Best Clinton High state champion football team?
1977.
77. I think I had family on that one. Best Clinton sports team not to win a state title?
1973. We lost we lost Fort Johnson 20-0. We just didn't go down with them hard right.
I think that's actually the one that Gary was that was the one that Gary lost. Now I think about it, I don't think he was on 77.
He was on
Something
72.
from your-
He was
on 72 and he
And
won
72.
2. I can't.
And 72 would be my second best.
There you go. Something from your time as superintendent you wish you could get a do-over on.
Most days. Because there's always something that you don't look at and you don't think. And the fact that you make and say something that becomes hurtful. And it may be something that's unintended. For me, a do-over is that God's grace is good and gives us, his faithfulness new each morning.
If you were superintendent of education in South Carolina for a day, what is one change you would make about the way things are currently handled?
I think what I would look at is focusing on a review of the traditional public school. I think we have so many options that are out there, and I don't consider them all equal. We have so many homeschool options, and they don't necessarily ascribe to the same level of rigor. And I think what I would like to do is to pull in some of those less valuable choices. And I'm not, we have Thornwell and you have Lawrence Academy, both of which I have no issue with at all. But I think there are some of the more homeschool programs that may not be as rigorous as we would like for them to be.
Favorite District 56 school board member?
Well, that would have to be Teresa Corley.
There you go. Somebody's
itching
for snacks to get brought on the first day.
Teresa took me to school as a senior. She took me to school when I was a 9th grader. So she picked me up and took me to school. I've never forgotten that. How many days would I have walked in the rain had it not been for her?
There you go. Last question. Who would win in a fight, you or Dr. Harris?
Dr. Harris would. It'd be no contest.
Man,
I'd feign sickness quickly.
I was about to say you've deflected all of my blows here, Dr. O'Shields. You've been ready for everything I've tried to do to start controversy. I was trying to see if I could goad y'all into something and see if we could get some sort of superintendent competition going.
I'd rather do, Ricky Chastain used to do the wrestling matches, and I always had a deep appreciation for that because I must admit I have watched my fair share of professional wrestling. Maybe Dr. Harris and I could be on one side against another team and maybe would have a professional wrestling match. I still have some of the moves. I might move a little slower, but I still have some of the moves.
You still get them. There you go. Team the districts up. Let's wrap with this. Can you give me, as you look back over, we've talked about it, a long and successful career at 56. If you had one favorite story from your time in the district, what would it be?
The fact that through all things, it's the next day. It's the next day because your favorite time has not happened yet because you're always looking at what can be. I have a board that's so wonderful. And I have a tremendously good school board, and that makes a big difference. They allow me the privilege to teach classes. I start my day at Clinton High School. To me, that was something that in 2017, I told them that I was thinking of getting out and doing something and maybe teaching college somewhere. And they said, well, why don't you teach around here? And that has been something that I have enjoyed tremendously over my now 10 years that I will have taught. And I think it helps me teach and grade papers and understand that some of those same complaints that teachers have are the exact same complaints that I have. Because children, they don't care if I'm superintendent. They just see me for who I am at that moment in the classroom as a teacher who sometimes makes a dumb mistake or gives a grade that they don't necessarily like. So to me, the best memory is the one that is yet to be.
There you go. Well, Dr. O'Shields, we appreciate you being here, appreciate you talking to us. By the time this is available, we're going to be basically the day before students go back. So do you have a message for the students of District 56 as we wrap up?
Well, I'll have a message for the entire county, and it will go without the music, so you're going to have to listen to my school's back, baby. School's back, baby. No school on Monday, starts on Tuesday. Cool adventures every single school day. Art with colors, music with beat. Every class makes the year complete. Teachers cheer us, give it your best. We'll keep trying and outwork the rest. Questions, answers, minds on fire. Learning lessons meant to inspire. School's back, Baby. Ready, got our Chromebooks in our hands, willing to learn and make a big stand, feeling excited, a little bit nervous, headed to school with a vision and purpose. School's back.
There you go. And he'll be teaching classes Tuesday morning at Clinton High School. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David O. Shields, thank you for being here. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next week.